So Chris, I'll introduce myself. How about that? No, that's fine. Do you have any kickoff messages? Anything that needs to be said? All right. All right, Daryl, how's this sound? Most people get enough of me. All right. And by the way, I just want to point out that I have my official Daryl Eller's Farm badge right here. All right, so this is the kickoff presentation for the 2016 Washington Small Fruit Conference. And this is the kind of like the Blueberry Commission session. And we're going to start off with a state of the industry presentation. So I'm just going to jump into this. So the commission was formed in 1969. It's one of the oldest commissions, commodity commissions in the state. The commissioners are Brian Sakuma, who is the chair, Adam Infield, Brenton Roy, Ton Van Mersbergen, Rob Dollywall, Leif Olson, and Rebecca Weber. And I think Brian Sakuma and Rebecca Weber are in here, and that's the only commissioners that are here at this time. So the blueberry industry is in a period of a lot of growth, a lot of change, and I've been saying this same exact thing for 6 years now. I just changed it, changed the bullet point from 5 to 6 for this talk. And so the Blueberry Commission is trying to develop programming activities that reflect what's happening to our industry. So this is a slide that I put in from last year. And the only thing I changed from this slide was, this is a slide from a year ago. So what did we do for 2016? I was going to try and do a prediction for it, which is a ridiculous thing to do. However, that does not stop me from trying. So I assume minimal winter injury. I assume normal pollination. I assume no drought. And I assume no excessively high temperatures. And my prediction last year was 112 to 115 million pounds. So we'll see how I did. If you look at the 2016 season, the yield per acre in Whatcom County for established blueberries was down. There were several large growers that had farm level reductions in the multiple hundreds of thousands of pounds. I could think of at least two companies that had $500,000 pound reductions in their yield. So there was a multi-million pound hit in Whatcom County on established fields, but there was significant new production from young fields in Whatcom County. Skagit, the yields were on relatively average in established fields with some new production from young fields. In eastern Washington, the large Duke plantings have matured and their yields are relatively flat, but there's some increased production from new fields. And the other areas of the state had average yields with small increases from young plantings. So the question is, how much did the yield depression on the established fields in Whatcom offset the production increase from young plantings around the state? So question is, what did we produce this year? We're not done calculating this. Actually, the assessments, the final due date for assessments are today, which means we're going to probably get a lot of checks in the mail today, the next day, and the next couple of days. So far, as of yesterday, we've collected 94.3 million pounds. I've talked to some growers and handlers who have not yet paid their assessments. There's a lot of, our checks in the mail about what they produced in 2016, or if I don't have a number for them, I just substituted last year's production to estimate what's not come in. 22.5 million pounds is my estimate of what's left to come in. And Washington has more knuckleheads about not paying assessments than any other blueberry growing state in the country. There's easily 2 million pounds, most of which goes across into BC, that we never see. So 118 to 120 million pounds is my estimate at this time. It's an estimate. This shows you, I have it back through 2016 about what our production has been. I used 2006 because that was the year I started running the Washington Blueberry Commission. And we've had a 655% increase in the last 11 years in blueberries. I'd challenge any perennial crop to show that rate of increase anywhere in the country for any crop. That's quite a remarkable increase. And it shows that in the United States, Washington still continues to be the leading producer of blueberries. Certainly British Columbia produces significantly more than we do, but 118 million pounds is a big number. And what's interesting is Washington is more so than any other state a processing blueberry state. No state produces or has a percentage of their production as high as what we do. Now, BC processes more than us. They do 110 million pounds processed, or 69%. But we're producing 76% of our product is processed. The next biggest source of processed blueberries is Michigan, 55 million pounds. And the Northwest, if you put Oregon, Washington, British Columbia together, we produce 155 million pounds of the 255 million pounds that are processed. So processed blueberries are primarily a Northwest thing. So what about 2017? Who knows? Who knows? And it's a fool's errand to predict yields. However, here I go. Assume minimal winter injury, assuming normal pollination, assuming no drought, assuming no excessive high temperatures. 132 million pounds in 2017. And here's how I come up with this. I got a 12% increase. I'm going to say it's going to go up 2% just based on if we get normal yields out of Whatcom County, and another 10% increase on the strength of new plantings. Okay, I'm going to go even further out in the branch. 10% increase the year after that would be 145 million pounds in 2018. Hey, Brian Sakuma, chair of the commission, are you nervous yet for what I'm going to say next? So just continuing on with this. So where are we going to go from here? Whatcom County has got at least 7,000 acres of blueberries. In 2014, it was 6,000. So that's been roughly 500 acres a year for the last 2 years. That's a record number. And I estimate a third of the acres are 4 years old or younger. So there's a lot of growth there. 25% of the acres in Eastern Washington is not yet at full capacity by the end of this year. Bear in mind the yields are 20 to 25,000 per acre at maturity, even for the organic fields. Another thing is we're a leading producer of organic blueberries. This year, Washington produced as much organic blueberries as the rest of the country combined produced organic blueberries. Conventional production is growing as well. Snohomish, Skagit counties are leading areas for new plantings, followed by Whatcom, Franklin, and Benton counties. Planting has moderated, which means only 1,000 acres went in this year, according to my estimates. So where's this going to take us? If what I have here is what I believe to be the acres. Now, every time I show this slide, people come up afterwards and said, you're low. And for example, I have 350 acres in Lewis County, and I think that's probably 500 or more. That's low based on what I know now. That number could be approaching 1,000 acres here in Lewis County. But I'm also conservative. I talked to Steve Midbow, who told me that he thought the average fully established field in Whatcom County averages more than 10,000 pounds when fully bearing. Is that right, Steve? More than this. And I can tell you people in Eastern Washington said it's more than 15,000 pounds to the acre. So, but when these acres are fully mature and producing this amount, the number comes out at over 200 million pounds. And by the way, this is assuming no planting of blueberries after this year. So this is what it looks like. This is what the trend line has been. I mean, this is This is based just on what we pay assessments are paid on, assuming that we collect 100% of the assessments, and we know we don't collect all the assessments. And it's been a pretty linear line. It doesn't get much more linear than that. And in my calculations, it just continues on the same trend line. Again, assuming planting stopped in 2016, this will go into a higher gradient if plantings continue. So what are we doing with the assessments? Our assessments are $8 a ton or 14 cents a pound, which is the lowest blueberry assessment in the United States. But because the industry is expanding, production is expanding, our funds are expanding. So we've created committees for research, promotion, and export, food safety, and labor. We have a small in-state fresh promotion, but we continue to use most of the biggest single thing we do is research. Now this shows you a trend line for our budget. So this is overall budget. This is the budget for research. So research equals almost everything else that we do. The blue line is promotion and export. Let's see. This is administration of the commission. This is outreach, special projects, and this is our food safety budget. I just want to point out administrative costs are budgeted at 19% and are increasing at a rate that's less than half the rate of assessment growth. Actual expenditures are close to 16%. I like to think that we're a little lean on this. You know, this is supplies. This is Department of Ag nomination budget, $6,000 for travel. We never spend close to this budget. $60,000 administrative services. This is the money that I receive. It pays for my time, the time for the bookkeeper, the time for my admin person, like who's helping with registration today. It contributes to, you know, our benefits, retirement. Also, it takes care of the office equipment, local travel, and a number of other expenses. We pay $2,000 for someone to review our books, NABC dues, conference calls, attorney general fees, Department of Ag, and some government required insurance that we have to pay. When it comes to our promotion, bear in mind that all right, so I'm gonna, Chris, where are you? Can you give me some power? Can you give me a place to plug in? Oh, yeah. Slight delay in the presentation. So when it comes to promotions, bear in mind that the U.S. High Bush Council, which has a much greater assessment for us, and it's across the whole United States, and collects money from imports, they've got over $6 million, and that's where most marketing occurs. I see Nathan Sakuma is here, and he's a representative to the U.S. High Bush Council Promotion Committee. So the commission's focus, we have a small $27,000 program that looks at fresh in-state, in-season promotions of blueberries, mainly in Seattle area, as well as helping support farmers markets and UPIC operations. This is a contract with Delaney Communications, a downtown Seattle PR company. We also give growers marketing materials for farmers markets, and about 30% of all the small growers in the state participate in this program. If you have a UPIC or a roadside stand, we've got some promotional materials for you, and we'd like to have you featured on a website called superblues.net, where we're trying to get all of the farm stand and UPIC operations on the state on this website. When it comes to research, not quite half of our funds go to support research. When the Blueberry Commission was started in 1969, the focus for it was to do research, and we have largely been a research funding commission ever since. We've got a research committee that is the most active committee that we have. It sets the priorities, ranks proposals, makes recommendations to the full commissions on proposals that should be funded. In 2016, we funded 75% of our projects, so we spent $206,000 on research. When we started the commission in 2006, we had 4 projects that we funded for $17,000. So we actually have grown like 12-fold in 11 years. So we've really funded a lot of research projects. In 2015, we had 15 out of 29. You can see we did 185,000 in 2015 and 206,000. So we just ramped up our research funding. Leighton Overson is the chair of the research committee. This is a list of all the proposals that we got. There's a lot of information on there, but what we have is a list of the projects, the research and institution, the dollar figure. If there's no dollar figure, these are the ones that were not funded. And this is the score that they rank. So they're ranked top to bottom in terms of how we prioritize them. So just real quickly, cold hardiness for determining cold hardiness in blueberries, fungicide decline curves for blueberries to help growers meet MRLs. This is a project to develop variety-specific fertility programs. This is a program to develop organic controls of spotted-wing Drosophila. This is a herbicide project. This is another MRL project. This is a project to look at how to control mummyberry and botrytis in conventional blueberries. This is Tobin Peever's fungicide resistance project. This is a fertility project, variety trial, mummyberry, a number of these projects. And the ones that didn't get picked, there may have been some pretty good projects, but like this machine harvesting for special process and fresh markets. We did not fund that project because they were going to be looking at varieties that do not grow in Washington or of interest in Washington. And so we struggled with this one, but we ended up not funding it. And so this one was a little bit too far out for us. So there are some reasons why we ended up not funding some of these. So exporting blueberries, this is another area that we're working on. All the growing regions are facing a potential oversupply of blueberries. And part of the way that we have to deal with this is to do exports, particularly to the Pacific Rim Asian countries. And few places are better suited to export blueberries than Washington. Oregon has fresh access to South Korea, and good for them. I'm glad they did it. They put a fortune and time and money on doing this. They were kind of like the trailblazers. And every time I talk to Brian Austin, my counterpart in Oregon, he says, I wish you guys would have done that. I look at that and said, they've got it. I wish we had it. How come we didn't do that? Oregon thinks, I wish you guys would have done it first. So it's been a lot of work for them, but it just shows you, but they worked on that for 10 years before they got in. That's how long it took. So it's a long, hard slog. It's something you're going to hear a lot about. But British Columbia, Oregon, California have aggressive export market development programs. We always are hearing about where Debbie Etzel from British Blueberry Council has gone to and markets they're getting into. California are real globetrotters on this. So Washington needs to step up the plate in this area as well. So that's an area that we need to increase our efforts. And before this session is over, you guys are probably going to be overwhelmed by all the things we throw at you about export market development. So we're going to try and develop export markets. This is an overview, and we're going to have a whole talk on this later in this session. But Washington's teamed up with California, a joint project to go into South Korea, China, and Australia early. We hope to get into South Korea in 3 years, which is what I said last year, and Australia not long after that. But I'll tell you, from the time that the apple industry proposed to go into Australia, it was 18 years before they got in. That's how long it took for apples to get into Australia. We've also recently initiated a program that will hopefully result in increased sales of processed blueberries in China and South Korea. More on that later. I'd like to initiate a similar program into India. More on that later. And if you look at where the biggest increase in our funding is on a percentage basis, it's been in export market development. Interestingly, our focus is almost exclusively on processed blueberries, and I'll explain more about that later. So we've hired an international trade development firm to assist with market access to a number of countries. We're considering a trade mission to Vietnam, which are very interested in having blueberries come into their country. The same for the Philippines. We're looking for other trade development ideas. Bryant Christie, which is our firm that we've hired, is one of our keynote speakers. Chris, do you remember what time off the top of your head they're speaking tomorrow? 11 o'clock, there's a presentation with Bryant Christie to talk about their view about for raspberries and blueberries for market development. And as a side note, the name is called Bryant Christie. The Bryant of Bryant Christie is Bill Bryant, the guy who just ran for governor. So that's just an interesting side note. But after we get done, later in this session, we're going to focus just on export market development and dive into this really deep on what we're trying to do for developing export markets. When it comes to food safety and labor, the Washington Red Raspberry Commission and the Washington Blueberry Commission hosted a set of workshops on food safety in 2014 and 2015. And in 2014, the U.S. Department of Labor joined in with us, which turned out to be both interesting and at times boring contribution. We had them at 4 locations around the state, targeting growers and their key employees. The problem that we had was in 2015, we ended up canceling 2 of the 4 because nobody showed up to them. And so we feel like we need to be doing things about food safety and educational labor issues, but we're getting mixed messages about what we should do. So you guys make a mental note, get a hold of me or Brian Sakuma or a commissioner and give us feedback about what the commission can do for the blueberry industry in terms of food safety and labor. But bear in mind, it's got to be something that the commission can do. We can't pay for you to get certified. We can't make people get certified, but probably in the area of what can we do in terms of outreach. One of the concerns that I have about looking forward is we do not have the capacity to fresh pack or process the crop that we produced this year. And if we can't produce it, if we can't handle it this year, what about next year and the next year? I estimate that 40% of our crop is packed or processed outside the state. Obviously, British Columbia and Oregon are the big destinations, but California and Idaho get some as well. And so we're leaving a tremendous amount of income on the table by shipping it out of state. And if we could increase our post-harvest handling capacity, it would be worth millions and millions and millions to our industry. I'll give you 2 examples. Almost all of the frozen blueberries that come out of Eastern Washington, and there's millions and millions of pounds that get froze out of Eastern Washington, are actually shipped to Oregon to be frozen. Also, we don't have, our industry could be strengthened if we had increased fresh pack capacity in Northwest Washington, but where are you going to find the workers to pick and pack the fruit? So this is a challenge our industry faces. Another concern I have just revolves around, we're rapidly moving to 200 million pounds of fruit. So just think about all the people it takes to produce 100 million pounds of fruit. You know, you got farm managers, production managers, crew chiefs, crop advisors, pickers, pruners, pesticide applicators, all the people that it takes to produce 100 million pounds. Well, we need people to produce 200 million pounds. So our workforce has to double in less than a decade. It's just, how's it going to happen? Another thing is this. Chris, how are you going to do this if our industry doubles in size? What building are you going to have this conference in when you have 800 people coming to it instead of 500? Another concern that we've got is we've got widespread fungicide resistance. Tobin Peaver is not here, or I would have put him on the spot. I don't think there is a blueberry field in Northwest Washington that's conventional, that he has not sampled, that doesn't have resistance to one or more fungicides in it. Another problem we have is spotted wing Drosophila. We have millions of pounds of fruit each year that is downgraded because of inadequate controls of spotted wing Drosophila. And then relating to my first point, you know, I lie awake at night wondering is supply or when is supply going to outstrip demand? Again, concerned about food safety. I wish we had a kill step. We funded a little bit of work on trying to develop a kill step in blueberries, and it's a pretty complicated issue. Worried that we don't have enough labor. If we don't have enough labor for 100 million pounds and we have a shrinking labor supply, what are we going to do about a 200 million pound industry? Also, I wish we were making more progress on mechanized harvesting. So I'll stop worrying about mechanized harvesting when we can machine pick of the fourth pick of Duke for the fresh market. Here's another concern that I have. Now that we produce 118 million pounds, we're the biggest producer of blueberries in the country. It's time for us to step up to the plate and assume a little bit more of a leadership role. Interestingly enough, even though we're the largest producer in the United States, we are the fewest members in the North American Blueberry Council. It doesn't cost that much, and there's a lot of value in participating and being involved in the North American Blueberry Council. And I don't know what we have off the top of my head, 300 growers, and we have 6 or 7 members of the North American Blueberry Council. Washington needs more representatives on the U.S. High Bush Council. We go to those meetings, and you know, California, that's half our size, has more representatives there than Washington does. Again, as I alluded to, I don't think we're making enough progress on open export markets. Another concern I have is the Pacific Northwest Small Fruit Research Center does not provide support commensurate to our needs. Another concern I have, you know, imports are not helping us, particularly on the process side. Latin America is continuing to ramp up, and we're our number one target, but they're going into China and South Korea and all the places that we want to go into too. We're the number one export market, but China is right behind us. And imports are up a lot. Another thing I just want to put on your radar screen is watch out for Peru. I kind of presided over the collapse of the Washington asparagus industry when it was decimated by the Peruvian imports. In 1990, Washington had 100 million pounds of asparagus, and 2 years ago they had 17 million pounds. It was an 83% reduction. Most of that industry got shipped down to Peru. Peru can produce 52 weeks a year. They got low cost production. The cost of labor is less than $10 a day, very high yields, and we're teaching them everything they need to know. I've been down there a few times and looking, and it's a very, very interesting situation. This is a place where it never rains. They have, as long as they have irrigation water, they can time their yields for to start any week of the year that they want. There are no diseases, there are no weeds, and most of the time there are no insects. Just think about growing in a place where this place that you see this picture of, it hasn't rained in 120 years. Here's just something that came off Fresh Plaza, the website just yesterday. It talks about 300 containers this season by sea freight. Last year was 195. And that was just from new plantings. There's been a 40% increase, and this is by sea. That doesn't count what was air freight, over 400,000 boxes for air freight, which is a massive increase over the previous years. So fruit is going to be an increasing factor. Here's another concern here. In 2016, there were growers who ended up with no place to take their fruit. Now, there's a lot of different reasons that this happened. So with an increased supply, it's become a buyer's market, and buyers are taking the cheapest fruit, the closest fruit, the easiest fruit for them to get, tending to avoid small growers or growers that aren't certified for food safety. So growers have got to be third-party certified, and for most of them, it's not just a GAP certification. You're going to have to get global GAP, or there's a number of these out there, but you're going to have to be third-party certified to sell your fruit. It's just, this is not the new standard. It's been the standard. And if you're not third-party certified, you're not going to be selling blueberries. Growers have to, particularly small growers, have to make it easy for buyers to take your fruit. And so the growers have got to get more involved with the buyers, more involved in marketing. And you should know now who is taking your fruit next year. And if you don't know by now who's taking your fruit next year, you should consider yourself to be in trouble. Okay, so some positive things. While the price is not as good as it is, there's more room for the price to go down. So it's not as bad as it could be. The interesting thing is, if you were to go back to the picture where I had the slide where I had yields, there were as many states that had a decline in production last year as went up. There, of the 10 places that produce blueberries in North America, 5 of them had yield decreases last year, 5 of them had yield increases. So if all 10 of them go up next year, it could make this year look positive. So one bright spot to me is this small fruit conference in the Linden Ag Show. This thing didn't exist 5 years ago. We've got 400 pre-registrations. We don't know if we'll hit 500, but this is a positive one. Chris Benedict, Henry Beerlink, with some help from a little help from the Blueberry Commissions, put this on. So I really like this program, and Diane O'Neill, who puts it on. We've had record attendance every year, and it seems like it gets better every year. And my concern is, Henry, what's the holding capacity of this place? I guess we're going to find out, aren't we? So I think Diane O'Neill and Henry Beerlink and Chris Bendick are doing a good job. We're doing some annual workshops with growers. Gwen Holheiser on the east side, Don McMorrin in Skagit, and Chris Bendick in Whatcom County. I've done workshops, pruning, irrigation, pest management, whatever is needed. If there's an area you would like to have a workshop on, let us know. We've got a budget. I just have a line item budget for workshops, and you tell us where you want some training, and we'll try and put some training on for you. We also have, we created the Washington Blueberry School. It's patterned after the Oregon Blueberry School. We're going to have it every other year. One day of intensive training, lots of different topics. We pick up 100 people to train. We're targeting employees that are coming into the industry or maybe moving up in their businesses. And like I said, we've got to train the people that are going to raise the second 100 million pounds of blueberries produced in Washington. You know, this doesn't seem like much to you all, but from my point of view, it's a big deal. I work real closely with Henry and the Washington Red Raspberry Commission. There's no two commissions that work more closely together than these two commissions. Our strong suit is our research program. One of the challenges that we have is actually getting enough proposals. And 4 years ago, we couldn't spend all of our research money. And so we had to go out and actually recruit researchers. And so we actually have gone out to play. We actually went and spent most of our money in Oregon and British Columbia for a while until we could get Tobin Peaver to come in, Lisa DeVetter's in. We've got a whole set of people. I would say that half of the research money that we're giving out were to people that didn't do blueberry research 3 or 4 years ago. So we've brought in a bunch of researchers. I mentioned Dr. Vetter, Dr. Peaver, Holheisel on the east side, Chris Benedict, Tim Miller, Tom Walters. So we're building a strong research base. We're funding more on research than any other state in the country. Katrina, I hate to put you on the spot. What's your research budget in British Columbia? Do you know? Okay. So we spend more on research than any other state in the United States. British Columbia's got a much bigger budget, so they're probably spend more than we do. But research takes time, and I just want to tell you, when you fund research projects, not all of them end up with useful results. Some end up being dead ends, but we're addressing 15 of our highest priorities. We have a list of about 30 priorities that we'd like to have research on, and we're hitting 15 of our top priorities. Virginia Stockwell is a new plant pathologist at the Small Fruit Research Center. She is, as far as I'm aware of, yet to start working on blueberries in Washington, so I hope to pull her in and get her involved. Now, I listed a whole bunch of concerns that I think are all real, but it's not all bad. We had the latest planting in the nation. No one has planted more blueberries on the tail end than we have. And so we've got the best varieties, the best technology. A higher percentage of our blueberries is on drip than any other state except California. We've got some of the best facilities because they're the latest, newest facilities. I used to say we have the highest yields in the world, but I think Peru might beat us on yields. But we have some of the highest yields in the world. We have the most organic production in the world. In 2015, we produced 18 million pounds of organic blueberries. The rest of the world the rest of the United States produced about 17 million pounds. And I don't know how much we produced organically this year. I've not got all the numbers in, but it's going to easily surpass 20 million pounds. I mean, it probably could hit 25 million pounds. Overall, we have some very, very good growers. We're in an excellent position to export. We're on the West Coast. And we don't have some of the pest problems that they have back east. In fact, for places like South Korea, China, and some of those places, the United States has already made the decision when they're pushing for exports, they're only going to go for Washington, Oregon, and California. And the rest of the states in the country are going to have to wait because they've got some pest issues that we don't. So we've got a leg up, and there's going to be more on that. And we also have very aggressive exporters. The number one, if you don't count Canada as an export market, because we send a lot of blueberries up there, but they all come back into the United States mostly. So after Canada, Japan's our number one export market, and we're really, really dominant into Japan. So we've got sophisticated and aggressive exporters. Another thing is we've got the widest range of harvest of any place in the world. Okay, so Peru's out, but this year we had some people in Eastern Washington pick in May. That's very unusual. It's extra warm, but we usually start the first week in June, and we often go into October. So that's another plus. There's also a lot of money behind some of our big operators, and everybody's wanting to grow in Washington. There's lots of outside money coming in. A lot of Canadian money, there's Chinese money, California money, there's East Coast money, Midwest money coming in because everybody wants to grow in Washington. Another thing is everybody wants Washington blueberries. Everybody does. I get contacted all the time about people wanting to invest in fresh pack sheds, or there's just a lot of demand for Washington berries. So our assessment's $8 a ton. We don't plan to change our assessments. But I can tell you, as production increases, our funds are going to increase. Probably most of our money in the future is going to continue to go into research, export market development. And with the increase in research, we're going to increase the effort to get money, information out to growers, because the worst thing you can do is put a lot of money into research, but then not get it communicated out to the growers. But one of the things that I feel like is we don't get enough involvement from the industry, enough feedback. I've been warned, be careful about over soliciting for information, because sometimes it can be a little overwhelming, but we'd like more participants. Another comment is, like, I have a good board. It gives me lots and lots of room to work, keeps me on a leash. And my last comment is, I hope you'll agree that we're kind of wisely using the growers' dollars. Whenever I think about spending any money, whether it's paying for a meal, paying for a research project, paying for a trade mission over to China, in my head, I do a calculation. How much blueberries did somebody have to produce in Washington that we get 4/10 cents a pound off of? So if someone goes to trade mission to China and it costs $4,000, was that 160,000 pounds of fruit that had to be produced to do that? So we think about this. So that's kind of my closing comment about kind of like the state of the industry. And if I seem to maybe a little negative, a little bit of stressed about some things, that's a fair situation to be in. But we got some good things going for us as well. With that, I'm going to pause for people have questions or comments. I know. Let's see. Who's going to be the first person? Oh, yeah, it's Daryl Ellers is the first person to talk. Yes. What?
Our rate that's going on in the state of Washington. You hear that?
Yeah, but basically your question is, what about the cost of labor? Is that well, you know, this is the cost of labor, and this is what the price of blueberries have been. I don't have an answer for that. The value of blueberries have to go up, or your cost of labor has got to go down, or you got to be like more efficient. I don't have a good answer for you. I can tell you that I have a small farm that is very labor intensive. And when you're on a small farm, the scale of economy is the bigger you are, your cost per unit goes down. But if you're a small farm, you're on the punishing other end of that scale, and my costs are stunningly high. So one option is you get bigger, or you got to get more efficient, or you got to get more money for your berries. But if you're small and your price is going down, you're in trouble. That make you feel any better? All right. Another question? Feedback? Yes, sir. Hang on just a second. His mic's not on.
Flip it up. Hey, Colton, the board.
Hello? Okay.
What do you got?
You mentioned a couple of times we need to watch out for Peru. You said you've been there, and what have you noticed? Is it the people that from here, like the big giants, have gone there for the cheap labor and, you know, you can grow all year, kind of? Or there's people from Peru, you know, it's Peruvians. I don't know, you know.
So what's the question?
What have you noticed? I mean, is it the people from here that have gone over there?
So when I've been in Peru, it was about, I was there for asparagus business, but I think the principles are the same. There's plenty of money down there, whether it's Peruvian money or other money. The farms down there are largely owned by Peruvians, and it's Peruvian money down there. And a lot of things, for example, there's asparagus that's being pulled out and put into blueberries. So a lot of it is the farms are owned by people down there, but they're selling to people. Let me see if I can put somebody on the spot here. Nathan, do you guys have farms, or do you buy out of Peru? What's that? Okay. Is it locally owned? Are the farms locally owned? Yeah. Probably most of what's going on down there is it's locally owned, but there's buyers up here who contract out of there. And Peru is primarily fresh, but they'll develop a processed market. That's what they did in asparagus. For example, Washington had the largest, most advanced automated asparagus processing plant. And the Peruvians took away that contract, came up here, bought the plant, shipped it down there. Now they got the largest, most automated asparagus processing facility in the world. The thing is, we're not going to stop Peru. And the people who buy blueberries, they want to supply 52 weeks out of the year. And so we're not going to do anything about Peru. They're just a factor. We have to deal with them just like we have to deal with Chile and Mexico, and we just have to learn to exist.
Question from Prosser. So
You made the comment that the price has room to go down. What are you anticipating the process price for blueberries to be?
Couldn't even begin to touch it and wouldn't if I could.
So the statement is just a guess?
Yeah, it's a general principle, because I talk to people about, what's the price, and I think there is room for the price to go down. Okay, I'm going to Brian Sakuma, what do you think about that statement? Could someone give him a microphone?
I think we know that the total inventories are continuing to increase. And I guess the question is, can the USHBC promote heavier and try to pull demand faster than supply? And that's the question.
Can the USHBC increase promotion or increase demand, drive demand through the promotions, and can the rest of us develop export markets because I'll tell you this, if we don't ship blueberries west across the ocean, we ship it back east against them. And so it's better if we can ship it to China and Korea and other places than leave it here domestically. But if we can't create more demand or move berries offshore, just with the plants we have in the ground, supply is going up a lot. Chris?
Why isn't Peru growing organically?
A, I'm not sure that they're not, and B, I'll guarantee you it's just a matter of time. Another reason may be they can't do a lot of organic crops because they have to fumigate with methyl bromide. So there may be some obstacle like that. Like they could grow organic asparagus, but they can't because it's all got to be hit with methyl bromide. Nathan, do you know if there's export protocols for fumigation? Okay. So I think there's some export issues associated with pests. That's an obstacle for organic production.
Yeah, I'm curious if there's been any collaboration amongst the states and research monies to facilitate a mechanical harvester for fresh markets, specifically given the situation with the labor cost.
So British Columbia, Washington, and Oregon do not specifically collaborate on that issue. Chad Finn's going to be giving a talk about breeding, where he talks about breeding things that might be more appropriate for mechanical harvesting. And there's some things around the edges. Bernardine Strict is doing something on Aurora and baby blue varieties about that. But because that's such a global national issue, that work is being funded at the national level. So the USHBC is involved with that, as well as the, and Lisa, I'm going to ask you about your mechanized harvesting. Are you doing something with mechanized harvesting? Okay, just hold on for just a second. Just get ready for that.
Sure. That was why I stepped up. So yes, there is a national effort led by Dr. Charlie Lee. He's an engineer at the University of Georgia, and it's a national collaborative project looking at developing new, improved mechanical harvesters specifically targeted for fresh market blueberry. So we're in year 2 of the project. We'll be transitioning to year 3 and hopefully be moving on to on-farm trials, again, looking at mechanical harvesters specifically for fresh market blueberry.
Chris, there's a topic for next year. And Lisa, would you just quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Lisa Wasco-DeVetter, assistant professor in small fruit horticulture based at the Washington State University Northwestern Washington Research and Extension Center in Mount Vernon.
Okay, another question, comment before we move on to our next topic? Okay, I'm going to be around for a while, so feel free to talk to me or any other board members. The